Good evening. Happy Thursday evening, which is kind of my Friday evening because the legislature had our last day in session for the week today. So it's really kind of happy Friday. As folks hop on tonight, I am coming to you live from my living room in Auburn. And as you hop on, I just want to let you guys know, I'm kind of giving you a little bit of an end of the week update. And this is an update that I sent out a Friday morning email update. So you guys are going to get kind of a preview tonight of that email update that I send out every week. So as you hop on here tonight, if the information I'm sharing tonight is information that you'd like to get on a regular basis to know what's going on in Augusta, to know what is going on in the legislature and more, then shoot me a text. My phone number is 207-632-7619, and I will put that in the comments after. But shoot me a text if you would like to get on my email update list so I can make sure that you get my Friday morning updates. And again, that is shoot me a text, 207-632-7619, and just tell me your name and your email address, and I will make sure to add you to that update list. So we've been in Augusta Tuesday through Thursday. There's been a lot going on, and I'm just going to highlight a couple things. But before I dive right into that, I want to remind folks that sometimes Facebook needs a little bit of a prod to remind it to share and let folks know that this update is happening. And so if you could, yes, throw a like on this video. If you could share it with your friends and family, if you think anyone else would be interested in hearing what's going on in Augusta. And if you could just say hi in the comments and let me know where you're tuning in from. It's always so interesting to see folks tune in from all over Maine in various areas and sometimes out of the state. And I love being able to read and see where folks are tuning in from. And finally, if you have any questions along the way, you could throw those in the comments as well. And I will do my best to answer them while I'm going through the live and then potentially afterwards as well, if there are other questions that come in. So tonight, I want to talk to you a little bit about some of what happened this week in Augusta. First of all, if you received my email update last week, then you know that National Popular Vote, Maine joining a compact to allow National Popular Vote to be how we allocate our electoral votes in Maine, that passed in the House. And so this week, that was voted on in the Senate. And so I'm going to fill you guys in a little bit on that. I will respond to a comment real quick. I am going to be in Washington County tomorrow. Very excited. The dinner table is hosting a policy social. It's called Bidenomics equals bad economics. And we're very excited to be hosting this in Washington County tomorrow. So if you will be at that, I'll be very excited to see you there. And I always love getting to have the opportunity to travel up to Washington County. So diving right in. Last week in the House, we voted on the National Popular Vote Compact, and unfortunately it did pass the House. So off it goes to the Senate, and as I'm sure all of you know, the bills bounce back and forth between the House and the Senate a couple times. So now it's had a first vote in the House, it's gone to the Senate, it had a first vote in the Senate. And what the Senate did, the House just voted for the bill straight up. And what the Senate did is a little bit different. The Senate voted for an amendment, an amended version of the bill. And this amendment says that this decision would go to Maine people. It would be on a ballot, on a referendum, so that Maine people would vote and say, yes, do we want to be in this National Popular Vote Compact? Or no, we do not want to be in this National Popular Vote Compact. We like our Electoral College just how it is, and we want to keep it that way. So it would put it to Maine people for a vote. So right now, the House has voted for the bill to just pass and for Maine to join this compact. The Senate has voted differently. The Senate has voted to send it to the people. And so now it's going to come back to us in the House, and we will have to decide, and really let's be real, it's the majority party that decides how to handle that. So it will either be that we insist and we say, no, we want the first version to pass that we voted for, and we would roll call that, of course. My vote would remain the same. No, we shouldn't join the compact. And so we could insist, we could say, no, our vote stands. The majority party could say, we want to go ahead and pass this bill as is. We want to join the compact. We could also do what's called recede and concur. And if the House chose, if they decided we want to recede and concur, then that would mean, okay, we agree with what the Senate did and we want this to go to a vote of the people too. Then it would go back to the Senate for another vote. And if they confirmed that, then it would come back to us for another vote. So you 2 consecutive votes within the chamber to final approval. We've got a vote to engross the bill. So there's a lot of back and forth, and there's a lot of potentials with what could happen. And to be honest, we're not really sure at this point what will happen, because the folks who are in charge, and that is the Democrat majority, they get to decide what is moved forward. And so what we know from our side of things is we'll definitely get a roll call on that. And what I would like you to think about and weigh in on in the comments is, do you think it's good for this decision to be put in the hands of the people? And I ask that, and I want you to remember at the same time that Maine people, a vote of the Maine people, is the reason that we have ranked choice voting. So I would like to know, bearing that in mind, that Maine people voted for ranked choice voting and many other things on the ballot. Do you want to see, would you want to see national popular vote, the decision about joining this compact, on the Maine ballot? So that's my question for you to answer in the comments. Let me know what you think. If that is something, I see that Rick has chimed in and said that it should go to the people, period. So Rick, I'd be interested in your feedback on thinking about ranked choice. Do you like ranked choice voting? And would you want to see that have gone to a vote of the people if you could have a do-over? What is your thought there? What do you think will happen if this National Popular Vote Compact goes to a vote of the Maine people? So that's the first issue. The next bill I wanted to mention is kind of a little bill that probably nobody has really heard of, but I just want to highlight it because it's actually a victory. And that is a bill from last session that was carried over, and that is LD 163. And this bill, what this bill would have done is said that if you have a lifetime hunting license, that if you're over the age of 16, and some people would be grandfathered into this. So like if you are already an adult and you have a lifetime hunting license, this would not apply to you. But let's say you've bought one for your grandchild and they're not yet above the age of 16. A lot of technical pieces in it as far as who it applies to and who it doesn't, but it would apply to folks in the future that bought lifetime hunting licenses. Once they hit the age of 16, they would be asked to let the government know if they were going to be using it that year. Now, to me, that entirely defeats the purpose of a lifetime hunting license if you're then being asked to check in with the government and let them know if you're going to be using that lifetime hunting license. So if you agree with me that that is a little bit silly, stinks of some government overreach, and is pointless, except for government to gather data on you, then you'll be glad to know that that bill failed in the House. And so we occasionally have good news. I like to report it, even if it's on a bill that you probably haven't heard of and probably, frankly, won't hear of otherwise. So that's some good news. LD 163, if you want to look it up, and I'll make sure that I throw that in the comments as well. I will put the National Popular Vote bill in the comments, as well as LD 163 regarding the hunting licenses, and then also the next bill that I'm going to talk about. So this bill, if you guys remember the other day, I asked the question, what do you think about public utilities? What would you think about having them be required to report certain high usage to Maine State Police? And I asked that question. I intentionally, a few of you commented and said, hey, what's the context to this? And I intentionally didn't give context right away because I wanted to get kind of a gut reaction and know what your thoughts were on it without context. And so now I'm going to fill you in on some of that context. I got a call from a concerned Maine citizen some weeks ago. And this call was the first I had heard of this bill. And the person who called me expressed some concern. Danny knows, triad weed. Expressed some concern about this bill, LD, and now I have right in front of me the number 2204. So LD 2204 is a bill that, yes, is attempting to deal with, if you've followed the Maine Wire and been reading about triad weed, it's a series they have been doing, but it is attempting to deal with the illegal grows in Maine. And yes, there are a lot of municipalities having to deal with this, and it is very real. And I do not want to diminish that at all. Yes, Representative John Andrews is the sponsor of this bill. And so I am in no way wanting to diminish what folks are going through in these municipalities that are having to deal with this problem. However, I do have to highlight a couple of aspects of this bill that make it quite impossible for me to support it. And two in particular. I won't be supporting the bill. And I feel like it is important to be clear on why, because it is attempting to address a problem, but from my view, it's using a really big sledgehammer and using it a little bit inappropriately in some ways. So I got a phone call from this gentleman who was concerned because this bill would say that if you, let me back up. Let me just read you a little piece of the summary of this bill. This bill would say that it requires a utility to generate a suspicious power use report and send that report to Maine State Police when a 400 amp or more total service is installed or upgraded to 400 amps, or whether that's one panel or several. Also a few other things, like if a transformer blows, if there's a month-to-month increase in power consumption of greater than 500% for a residential customer. So these are provisions in this bill regarding what a utility company would have to report to Maine State Police. And this person called me concerned because from his perspective, it was because many Mainers are having 400 amp panels installed. And so I learned a fair amount from him as we were having this conversation. If someone has heat pumps, they might have a 400 amp panel. If they have an electric car. Now listen, I know many folks are not fans of electric cars, but if you want to buy an electric car, that's your right. No government coercion. Please, thank you. But that is your right. And if you do, you might have a 400 amp panel installed. Now, also, greenhouse that's not intended for illegal grows, etc. And so here's the question, and I know where I stand on it. This is an increase in surveillance state, an increase in police state, and there can be a lot of reasons that an average everyday citizen in Maine might have a 400 amp panel installed. Do we want it to be mandated that a private company is required to report, perhaps you, to Maine State Police on a suspicious power use report? Now, these illegal grows are being found, are being dealt with, and it may be messy and may not be ideal, but I cannot sign on to supporting a bill that allows us to, without due process, violate multiple amendments to the Constitution regarding your rights. And I do believe that this portion of the bill does that. I've talked a couple times this session about finding myself in agreement with the ACLU, and I can agree to agree and on some issues and disagree on others, but I think that they're spot on this issue, and that is talking about the Fourth Amendment and the 14th Amendment, and your right as citizens, my right as citizens, to have due process, to not be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, to have the right to be secure in their persons against unreasonable searches and seizures, and to not be living in a police state where your electricity use can be reported to Maine State Police. So I know that not everybody's going to agree with me on that. And in fact, I saw an interesting comment on that post the other day that I had to take note of. I kind of did a double take on that. And it was, someone wrote the comment, necessary infringement. That was a piece of their comment, a necessary infringement. So on the one hand, this person acknowledged, they knew what bill I was talking about, and they acknowledged that this is an infringement, but they qualified that by saying that it's a necessary infringement. And that's a hard pass for me. That's a hard pass because I just stop at infringement. This is an infringement. And so I think there are a lot of other things that are being done, can be done. Some of this information is actually already making its way to the state police by other means, and that's how they are successfully shutting down some of these grows. The other thing that I have to bring up, and again, I am well aware that there are going to be folks who agree and who disagree with me on this portion as well. Let me pull up some notes here. And that is, there's a portion of the bill that would say that folks from certain countries cannot buy property in Maine. Again, intended to stop the illegal activity that is going on all around our state. I know that there are, I've been informed of one of these locations in my own district. So it is happening all over our state. However, our Constitution is pretty important. And so when we're talking about saying that citizens from certain countries cannot buy property in our state, that is an issue that's already being litigated in other states and that is being challenged in banning Chinese citizens from purchasing homes. That is going on. There was a law passed in Florida, and that is currently being challenged. So I get it. It's a problem around the state, but it needs to be handled in a way that does not infringe on our constitutional rights. And Rick, I agree with you. There is no such thing as a necessary infringement of our rights. Danny, I did talk to the bill sponsor and asked about an amendment prior to the public hearing. And he did present that as an option to the committee, but the bill has not been amended and it will go to the floor in its original form. So this is the bill that we'll be voting on, and I'll share it in the comments, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. We will be voting on the bill in its original form. It will not be amended. It won't have these sections taken out of it. And in order to amend a bill then on the floor, you first have to pass the bill. So we would have to agree that this bill is okay as is and pass it in order to then amend it. And I'm not okay with that either, because I can't agree that this bill is good in its current form, because getting an amendment on it on the floor is not guaranteed. And so there are, yes, a couple of sticking points, Danny. So those are the kind of the three highlights I wanted to talk to you guys about from this week. The the slippery slope here, particularly on the reporting of electricity usage to the Maine State Police, is huge for me. And I honestly think it should be huge for everybody, because there's no saying that a report, a database, whatever you want to call it, is going to always be used for the original intended purposes, right? So this law could be, if passed, could be amended in the future, and that information could be used for nefarious purposes against law-abiding Maine citizens. And so thinking not just of right now in the situation we're facing here and now, not just thinking of your constitutional rights, but also thinking about the future and ways that this law could be used while not intended at this point, but could be used with ill intent in the future. And so that's where I'm at on LD 2204. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. I promise I will post the bill in there once I get off of here. And I'll just remind you guys, if you're interested in staying caught up on what is going on in Augusta and want to know, I said at the beginning of my live, you can get on my email update list. I send out a Friday morning legislative update to let you know what's been going on in Augusta. You got kind of a preview of that tonight in talking about these 3 bills. And there will be more in tomorrow morning's update that I'll be including as well on some other issues as well. So if you want to get on that email update list and stay in the know with what's going on in Augusta, just send me a text with your name and your email address to my cell phone, which I will also post in the comments, and that is 207-632-7619. So thank you guys for hopping on tonight. Michael, hello. Thank you for saying hi in the comments. Please do be sure to let me know where you're tuning in from and what you think about these bills, about national popular vote, about the lifetime hunting license and dodging that bullet, as far as not having to let the government know if you're going to be hunting that year, and then also about this bill, LD 2204, and the mandatory reporting of high electricity usage with the 400 amp panels. I would like to know what your thoughts are. So please share them in the comments, and I will see you next time.